Welcome back. I-24 News, still your daily dose on this Wednesday, March 15, 2017. We're going to stay with the 6-year anniversary. Sadly, nobody can call the Syrian civil war and possibly what many refer to as the civilian Holocaust, so to speak, that's been going on there for 6 years. As we said, 6 years ago, Syria began what seemed to be the beginning of the Arab Spring. It evolved into a horrific civil war that cost the lives, that claimed the lives of nearly 500,000 people. With me in studio right now, I-24 News senior Middle East correspondent Mohammed Al-Qassem, and some news right now as we are discussing this, breaking out of Damascus,
Syria,
right?
Absolutely. We have news of an explosion in the Syrian capital, Damascus. We have also reports of number of killed and wounded at this time. It's a developing story. We'll keep an eye on it as we continue covering
as we continue,
Syria.
and as we said, this is a report about an attack in Damascus. We just heard an OCHA spokesperson from Damascus talking about how hard it is to get aid to millions of people who are displaced in that country. We also had a chance a couple of days ago to speak to a representative of the White Helmets. The White Helmets, better known as maybe the only group in and around Aleppo who manages to bring assistance, medical assistance, to people who are hurt, get them out of places that have been destroyed. We asked the representative of White Helmets, what will happen if Bashar al-Assad will remain in power? Something that seems quite evident if we are to look at international pressure to maintain Assad in power. This is what he had to say. In the event, Amar, and I'm asking you this, that Bashar al-Assad stays the president of Syria, what do you think will happen to the country?
The war will still on because this man is responsible for the slaughterhouse, the human slaughterhouse, as the United Nations has named, as a report of the United Nations has named. This man is responsible of killing millions, of besieging millions of people, of displacing millions of people. All these refugees crises are caused by this man. We want this man to, Syrians want to get rid of this man.
Now joining me now, as we said, in studio with me, Mohammed Al-Qassem, I-24 News senior Middle East correspondent. Bashar al-Assad seems to stay in power. Talks keep breaking down. What happened to the attempted talks in Astana yesterday?
To be quite honest with you, they failed yesterday before they ended today. We've just received news that the talks ended. And the reason I say that they failed, because the opposition, the Syrian opposition, did not attend these talks. And the government cannot speak by itself or to itself.
They're not
and
talks if the opposition are not there.
To be quite honest with you, they're not even talks, because you have other parties involved, and the Syrian government and the opposition aren't talking directly to each other. There was a delegation from Turkey, Jordan, Russia, as well as the Syrian government. But without the Syrian opposition being involved, we won't see any progress. On the 23rd of March, we have round number 5 in Geneva of the talks. They haven't achieved much in the last round, which was held about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago. There were lots of pessimism in the air when the talks started. There was a breakthrough of some sort, if we can say, when the government delegations attended a direct meeting with the opposition, but that not really produce anything.
Now, really quickly, a last question to you. If Bashar al-Assad, I'm going to ask the same thing, because it seems pretty evident that the powers that be, or the world powers, are resigned to have Assad stay as the leader of Syria. He's getting a lot of assistance from Russia. If he stays, can the civil war even end if he stays in power?
Listen, giving the reaction of the opposition, probably not. But President Assad has Russia behind him and Iran, and they're both saying that he has to fulfill his term, which will end in about 3 years or so. And then he has the right to run for elections at least twice to become the president. So he is there, and the international community is somewhat resigned to the idea that he should stay, because the other option, which very smartly President Assad kind of
precipitated the notion that they're ISIS.
It's either me or the so-called Islamic State, which is destruction, death, blood, and chaos.
And whatnot. And sadly, as we said, hundreds of thousands of people still dying and millions displaced. Thank you, Mohammed Al-Qassem, as we now move along. Now, the White House, I'm going to go straight back to the States. The White House yesterday preempted a media leak of President Donald Trump's 2005 federal tax returns. Turns out he paid them. The administration said Trump paid $38 million in taxes and had earned income of more than $150 million on that year. We should all be so lucky. Now, Trump has repeatedly refused to release his tax returns. It was a big, big issue all throughout the campaign. He broke with decades of tradition among presidential candidates of all political parties. The admission came just before MSNBC began its broadcast, saying they would reveal a short filing. Let's watch a bit of that broadcast report, break it down right after.
President Trump's tax returns revealed, partially. This morning, the White House is confirming what the billionaire president paid in taxes in 2005 only, $38 million on an income of more than $150 million. Trump's tax rate, 25%, slightly lower than the average, but much higher than the 14% 2012 GOP nominee Mitt Romney paid the year before he ran.
What is your tax rate?
It's none of your business.
Trump, the first president in decades not to release his taxes.
Yes or no, do you believe voters have a right to see your tax returns before they make a final decision?
I don't think they do.
So why now?
Came in the mail over the transom.
A report from MSNBC. Independent award-winning journalist David K. Johnston claimed on the Rachel Maddow show he received the first 2 pages of the 05 tax document anonymously in the mail.
Let me point out, it's entirely possible that Donald sent this to me. Donald Trump has, over the years, leaked all sorts of things.
Democrats have called Trump the, quote, deflector in chief. Negative headlines about the GOP healthcare plan to replace Obamacare. His failure to back up his claim that President Obama wiretapped him, and investigations on Russia.
What do the Russians have on Donald Trump politically, financially, and personally? What would the tax returns tell us about that?
Now, don't go anywhere. When we get back, we're going to break down, was the President of the United States actually the source behind his tax returns? We'll be right back. Welcome back. I-24 News on this Wednesday, March 15, 2017. And we are staying with President Donald Trump's tax returns. As we said, released yesterday by the White House shortly before an MSNBC show actually broke the lid, so to speak, on the president tax returns. So does he or doesn't he pay his taxes? The 2005 tax return, 2 pages of them were released and on MSNBC's Rachel Maddow's show. Let's go straight to New York. Ellie Jacobs, based in New York City, is a New York City-based, public affairs and public relations consultant and a political partner with the Truman National Security Project. Ellie, wonderful to see you and hear you this morning again. Quick question to you. I have an inclination, or let's say, I'm leaning towards the fact that the source for these tax returns were the White House. And of course, I have no proof for that and I have no sources. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty interesting thing to speculate, and everybody is doing it. And usually when everybody's gut is pointed in one direction, there's good reason for that. There's 2 particular things with the tax returns. One is that there's a very faint copy on the second page that they released that actually has a stamp that says client copy on it. That's thing one. You have to look.
Okay.
You have to look very carefully.
Okay.
And the second thing to remember is that the New York Times blockbuster release of more detailed tax returns back in October, the return address on the envelope when it was sent to the reporter was actually Trump Tower. So again, it's all speculative, but it's entirely possible.
No, it's all speculative, entirely possible. Also, Donald Trump back in the day, I think it was 10 years ago, was his own source on a story to Vanity Fair. But I'm not going to get into the details of that. But Ellie, I'm asking you now, when it comes to the president's, perception within the American public, this release on MSNBC does him good or does him bad?
I think overall it does good for him and his supporters, and it makes the Democrats and MSNBC and the rest of what Trump calls the fake news look pretty stupid. The fact that MSNBC hyped this the way they did, and Rachel Maddow went on for a half hour before disclosing two kind of flimsy pages that don't really tell us very much or answer any of the questions that need to be answered. And more importantly, as you just mentioned, it distracts from a whole lot of other things that are going on right now.
Such as?
The healthcare debate that's going on, the CBO score, the Congressional Budget Office score that was so poor earlier in the week. The FBI director is going to be on Capitol Hill today. Apparently, he's going to be telling senators whether or not the FBI is investigating ties with Russia and the election. The Kushner family just made a massive deal with China, which appears on the surface, at least, to be in violation of a couple potential, if not actual legal loopholes, significant ethical issues. And on top of that, there's just the everyday kind of drip of bad news that comes out of this White House.
I know, but Ellie Jacobs from New York, never mind that, because Donald Trump paid $38 million, I believe, in 2005. Ellie Jacobs, joining us from New York. Fabulous to speak with you, as always. Thank you, as we now move along.
Thank you.
And of course, we are going to come back straight into the Middle East because U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy to the region, Jason Greenblatt, met this morning with Israeli President Reuven Rivlin. The meeting in Jerusalem took place a day after Greenblatt met for 4 hours with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in the West Bank city of Ramallah. Several topics made their way into the discussion, including peace talks, the improving of the Palestinian economy. After the meeting, Abbas's office put out a statement saying that a historic peace deal is possible. I'm ending that quote right now, and that it would enhance security throughout the region. Abbas is scheduled to meet with President Trump in Washington next month. After the meeting, Greenblatt tweeted, because that's what everybody does these days, tweeted, quote, President Abbas and I discussed how to make progress towards peace, building capacity of Palestinian security forces, and stopping incitement. Our senior Middle East correspondent, Mohammed Al-Qasim, was in Ramallah. He filed the following report. Let's take a look and then meet him and another favorite person of mine. Don't go anywhere.
A lot of things were talked about. Among them, that an offer was made to President Mahmoud Abbas. One, that Israel will cease to announce, not to freeze, but to cease to announce any new building of settlements or units in the West Bank and East Jerusalem for the time being. Second, there will be incentives, economic and financial incentives, given to the Palestinian Authority to try to help it and help its economy. This is why also the envoy met with Palestinian entrepreneurs also today in an attempt to find out what their needs are. What's this? What does the Palestinian Authority think about it? No official answer yet. However, the Palestinian president may have an answer either at the end of the month or early in April, when I was told also by a senior Palestinian official that President Abbas will make his trip to the White House, to Washington, to fulfill the official invitation given to him by President Donald Trump last Friday evening on a phone call. He will be in Washington in early April, and probably then he will give the Palestinian Authority official response to the offer.
As is the magic of television, Mohammed Al-Qasim is with us in studio right now as well, as is host and anchor of The Rundown, Kalev Ben David, with me also to help understand what this all means. And actually, Kalev, I want to start with you, because also the Israeli administration came out yesterday, where Benjamin Netanyahu hinted that soon a deal will be made, or the capacity to, in a very low-key way to build settlements will become possible in the West Bank, or something to that effect.
Well, actually, he said they're still discussing that issue. Okay. But I thought I detected a little frustration on Netanyahu's part. And it's also interesting that he even sort of raised that.
Yes,
why make it
public?
Well, here's my interpretation, is that there is disagreement with the Trump administration, not on buildings, for example, in East Jerusalem, which it looks like the Trump administration will permit or not object to. But on the so-called new settlement, as some have called it, that would replace the Amona settlement outpost. It looks like there is still disagreement on that. And I think Prime Minister Netanyahu is going public with that to relieve some of the political pressure on his right, on those pro-settlement elements in his government, his own Likud party, the Jewish Hope, because he's been getting the blame. They've been saying, well, you should demand more from Donald Trump. Exactly. And this is the way Netanyahu is saying, no, it's not from me. We are getting some pushback from the Trump administration on, let's say, building outside the settlement blocks in East Jerusalem. And I think that's why you saw that kind of, I would say almost, like I said, frustration a little bit.
No, frustration, I agree. And in that respect, Mohammed Al-Qasem also with us. We'll go to Ramallah in a second. Because, yesterday what we saw, what it felt like to me is the stamp of approval by the Trump administration to Mahmoud Abbas as the leader of the Palestinian Authority.
Well, yeah, and that's what we talked about yesterday, Yael. We said that the phone call that President Mahmoud Abbas received last Friday from President Donald Trump was the kiss of life. It legitimized and made President Mahmoud Abbas relevant again. But the problem is, and I'm not as optimistic as many who looked at what happened yesterday and saying probably President Trump was correct in that he would be the one bringing the ultimate deal. There is no ultimate deal. I spoke with really very important Palestinian thinkers yesterday, talked to them by phone as well as in Ramallah in person, and they all said that they are very, very pessimistic about the situation now. They don't think that President Trump will actually lead or bring about a final resolution. And we do have your guest that you're about to talk, and he's someone that is very much knowledgeable of the Palestinian territories.
Dr. Khalil Shikaki.
Yes, Dr. Khalil Shikaki, which I was in his office a couple of weeks ago. And one of the polls that he came out with, it sheds very bad light on the situation.
And the situation, apropos of that, Dr. Khalil Shikaki, head of the Palestinian Center for Policy, and Survey Research, joins us now live from Ramallah. And Dr. Shikaki, I want to ask you, first of all, stamp of approval, yes or no? Can Mahmoud Abbas, what is the approval rating, let's talk about specifically, of Mahmoud Abbas within the Palestinian people, within the Palestinian Authority, within the public? Can he carry out anything for the negotiations that people are planning to do?
Well, there is no doubt that this is not a good time for Mahmoud Abbas. His popularity is very low. 2/3 of the public would like to see him resigning. His credibility is also at a very low point. About 3/4 of the public do not believe that he has credibility. He's in deep trouble. However, if he manages to change the situation, this could change a lot of things for him. 11% describe conditions in Gaza as good, 25% describe conditions in the West Bank as good. There's a great deal of pessimism about the short term among Palestinians. If Abbas is able to bring about hope, if he is indeed to be able to communicate effectively with the Trump administration, this could certainly improve his position among Palestinians. His ability, therefore, to negotiate and come to terms depends on what these terms are and whether, in fact,
what they may be and what they may mean. No, indeed so. Mr. Shikaki, I want to thank you so much for joining us from Ramallah. We'll be right back.